This is the third series, or the third episode, I should say, where I'm attempting to share some of the testimonies and some of the stories, true stories, by the way, of the things that happened to me or happened with me while I was traveling around the United States, Canada, and several other countries the last 40 years, singing and sharing the gospel with testimonies and with my yodeling songs. And well, if you're interested in some of those, you go to YouTube/Idaho Yodeler and you can see what I did there. But I want to tell the stories that God gave me, the testimonies He gave me. And this would be the third story in a row that I'm going to tell. And it's hard to believe. I know it's hard for me to believe, especially this one that I'm going to tell you now. And so I'm going to ask you a question. Do you believe that God actually talks to us sometimes in an audible voice of some way that you hear it? Well, I want to tell you something. I believe it because it's got to start, though, clear back. I used to go to Canada quite often, and I used to do concerts all over Canada. And I had a friend who lived way back in the bush, 75 miles. Oh, I can't even think of the name of the town.
A dirt road,
It was 75 miles back into the bush where he lived. And when I went and stayed with him, we hunted for moose, and he could get his license to hunt, to be a guide for me. So when he was a guide, I could hunt legally over there as long as I bought my tag and my license and all that. And so I've gotten moose there with him before, but then a few years went by and I never heard from him again. And I've often wondered whatever happened to him. I just never, I would email, I never get an answer. And figured, well, maybe he's changed his email. Maybe he's moved out of the hills because he was way back in there. And so I didn't know how to reach him other than telephone, which I still had his phone number. Now, I was getting ready to take a tour that was going to start me in the bottom of BC, British Columbia, Canada. I was going to work my way up through town after town after town and go into different towns along the way, sharing the gospel, singing my yodeling songs, which, by the way, if you... some of my yodeling songs were gospel yodeling songs. So if you want to hear some of them, go, like I told you, to YouTube. Now, so I wanted to, on this trip, I thought if I have time, I'll call my friend and I'll ask him to take me hunting again. Because while I'm in Canada, maybe I can find some time to go to his place and maybe he'll take me hunting for moose. So I called him, which it's a radio phone that he has out there. There's no phone lines out there, but you can reach him through a radio phone. Now, to do that, you got to call a radio operator somewhere in Canada, and then the radio operator connects you through radio and your phone to this guy back in the bush. And so I try to call him, and he doesn't answer. And about 2 weeks before I went on this tour, I called him about every other day because I wanted to definitely get with him and hunt moose. Well, he never, ever answered the phone, and I'd call and call. He never would. Finally, the day came, and I'm starting the tour, and I'm traveling up from the bottom of Canada, Vancouver, BC, and then on up into one little town after another. And about a week or so goes by, and I'd call him almost every night, hoping that I can reach him. And I have to call through the radio thing, okay? He still never answers the phone. So for all I know, he's moved away. He could have died. I don't know.
Has God spoken to you yet at this point?
No.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So my son is listening in on this. I almost lost my train of thought. And so I got a call while I was at a motel somewhere along the road there, going north and through Canada. I'd stay at motels at night, and I got a call from whoever had arranged the tour, and they told me that I had about 3 or 4 days that was no, I wasn't scheduled to be anywhere. And I thought, wow, 3 or 4 days, I got time to run up to my friend's place and go out there in the bush and get a moose. If I could just get him on the phone. Well, so I tried again. And before I went to bed, I called, and the guy didn't answer. He just didn't answer. Well, that was discouraging. So I went to bed and I went to sleep. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I was awakened, as somebody said out loud, and I know it sounds strange, but I was awakened by a voice that I thought I heard it audibly. I'm sure if you'd have been in the room, you wouldn't have heard it audibly. I think he spoke to me in my spirit, but it woke me. And these are the only words he said. If you go, I'll give you a moose. That was the sentence. That's all he said. And I sat right up out of bed, and I knew that God had spoken. He's going to give me a moose. So I'm excited, and I call my friend back there in the bush, there where he lives. He does not answer. Now, I've got about a 300-mile trip to make to get to the town where he lives close to, but he's 75 miles down a little old trail that goes out into the bush. And so not only 300 miles on highway to the town, but another 75 miles back into the bush. Well, I head out. I'm going to go get this moose that I was just sure that God said that he was going to give me. And so after I drive the 300 miles and I get to this town that is 75 miles from my friend, and I can't even think of the name of the town now. I'm so sorry. But so on God's word, I went to the game department and I bought my elk tag and
Moose.
not elk, moose, my moose license and a moose tag. Now I'm sure that was around $200 or so, but that's on what? That's on that I heard God say, if you go, I'll give you a moose. And yet I hadn't even talked to the guy who lives out there on the phone. He doesn't even know I'm coming. And I'm going on that word alone. And as I look back, I can't imagine where did I get the faith to do this. But it did happen. I did do it, and here's what happens. So I buy the tag and I buy the license, and I head back into the bush. And when you go 75 miles on a trail, where it's one of those kind of where the two tires go here and the grass grows in between, that's one of those kind of trails. And I drove 75 miles back to his home. Now, when I got there he was out in the front yard, and he was mowing the grass. And his family was there, his wife and a little child. And he looks up and he sees me drive in, and he says, "Buzz, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Why don't you answer the phone?" "Oh," he says, "I never turn it on." And when he said that, he walked over and he turned it on. Okay, so I said, "I've been trying to call you for 3 weeks and you never answer the phone." He says, "Well, you're calling at the wrong time." And like I said, I don't have it on a lot of the times. And he said, "What are you here for?" I said, "I'm here to get a moose." He said, "Oh, no, you're not." I said, "Oh, yes, I am." He said, "No, you're not." I said, "Well, why aren't I?" He said, "Because the guy who signs my license is in Germany, and he won't be back for another week. So he's got to sign my license before I'm legal to act as a guide so that you can hunt moose here." I said, "For some reason or other, that doesn't bother me. I'm going to get a moose." He said, "Oh, no, you're not." About that time, the phone rang. And he said, "I wonder who that is." I said, "Answer the phone. It's God calling." That's exactly what I told him. Answer the phone. It's God calling. So he goes over and he answers the phone, and it's the guy that's in Germany, although he's come back a week early. And he says, "Barry, I want you to know that I just signed your license." the guy's jaw dropped. And mine didn't. I knew that was going to happen. Something was going to happen. And he said, Buzz, he said, the license is signed. We're legal. We can go. Well, it was about 4 o'clock, and that's getting towards evening. So let's go get the moose. Well, we hunt off of a big lake. The lake is 7 miles long and about a mile wide. And we've hunted there before, and I've gotten moose there before, clear back at the other end of the lake. Matter of fact, my son Daryl over here, you ought to peek your head in here. He got a moose there one time, and he was only, you were 18?
16 or 17.
16 or 17 years old. But anyway, now I'm going to get a moose. Okay, so, and this is on the word that I got at 4 o'clock in the morning, when God says, if you go, I'll give you a moose. So now I'm there, and we get in the boat, and as we head out towards the other end of the lake, in a little while we can see a black dot, and it's a moose. It's a cow moose, but you can't tell. It's just a black dot because we're 7 miles from that black dot. But as we get closer and closer, we could see that it was a moose. We could also see that it was a cow. Well, it's illegal to shoot a cow moose. So as we get closer and closer, I'm watching her, and she's walking around, and she's about 50 yards from the shore. And just come in from the shore about 50 yards, and the water is still just up to her knees. So she's got water not quite up to her belly. And so, boy, my mouth is dry. Wish I had some water here. And here we go. This is better. Excuse. Hey, this is not professional, you know. This is just the way it is, okay? And so, as we draw closer, I'm watching this cow moose move around, and she's putting her head underwater, and she's pulling up a bunch of moss, and she's eating it. She sees us, and we stop about, I would guess 50 yards from her, maybe closer than that. And she's not afraid of us. She just watches us, and we watch her. And like I said, she's walking back and forth and picking up moss from the bottom. And then she's staring at us while she chews on the moss. And my friend said, well, there's a cow, but there should be a bull moose around here somewhere. And I said, yeah, there should be. And he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I'll do a moose call. So he goes, which is kind of like a moose. Sounds like something else to me sometimes. But this is what he called. He called for a moose. And now here's the part this is the part that people are going to say, come on, you're crazy. All of a sudden, I saw God create a moose. I mean, if there had been a bull moose that walked out from the shore, which is about 50 yards, we'd have seen that happen. If there had been a bull moose out there with the cow the whole time, and he was about twice her size, we would have seen him because he was not there while she was walking around. But when he called the moose, there was, just like that, a big, huge, beautiful bull moose standing there looking right straight at me, face right at me. And like I said, he's in the water, he's near the cow, but the cow's over to one side, and he's looking at me. And my friend says, oh my God. I said, yes, that's my God. And he said, well, shoot him. And I put the sights on him. I thought, you know, I want a heart shot. I said, I'd like to get a heart shot. And that moose turned sideways and like this and looked at me. I put the sights on his heart. He stood there for a little bit after I shot. I got ready to shoot again. My friend said, don't shoot anymore. He's dead. Well, he stood there for a little while looking at me, and pretty soon, plop, down he went. He was down in the water. Well, this was now starting to get dark. This ain't the end of the story, although that's far enough to tell you that though God had told me while I was laying in bed at 4 o'clock one morning, he said, if you go, I'll give you a moose. He had kept that promise, and I had done it on faith the whole time, and now I had the moose. Of course, to get him back to where my friend lived, 7 miles, and it was now black as pitch black at night. We had a hard time finding our way back. But the moose floats, because every hair is full of air. They're hollow. So we floated him in this ice cold water all the way back to the shore. And I guess I better make this a little shorter rather than go to all of the details. But about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we got him back to the shore, or at least we got him close to shore. Couldn't get him too close because he started dragging bottom. And so we left him lay there in the ice cold water, went and got some sleep, and about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, we got up and got the tractor with the forklift, went out and pulled that moose up out of the water and pulled him out at the edge of the lake. And of course, we butchered him out right there and then because I didn't have a lot of time, we cut him up and put him in his freezer. Well, to try to make this a little shorter, after I got through with the tour, I've been singing all the way up to northern Canada, all over there, 2 or 3 weeks of concerts night after night. Then on the way home, I went back to my friend's place in the bush, picked up my frozen meat. I had about, probably 400, 500 pounds of moose meat that I brought home with me. And that was all on one thing that I heard God say, and I know I heard it. I was asleep when he said it, but I was just kind of in one of that part where you're almost awake. And I heard the words, if you go, I'll give you a moose. Now, this is just one of the many miracles. See, I follow one scripture in the Bible that I really have made it my favorite one. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And one of the things I've tried to do is, in no matter what the situation is, no matter how sad it gets, and sometimes I've failed at this very thing I'm talking about, but I try to delight in the Lord. I try to remember God's got it all under control, and he's going to take any bad thing that happens, and make it good if I have the right attitude. And the attitude is continue to delight in him. Matter of fact, I wrote a little chorus. Lord, Lord, you delight me. Lord, I'm delighted in you. Lord, Lord, you delight me. Lord, I'm delighted in you. You're giving me all my heart's desires. You're meeting my needs every day. I'm trusting in you, and you bring me joy. And that's why I can say, Lord, Lord, you delight me. Lord, I'm delighted in you. Matter of fact, I wrote that chorus and yodeled with it and stuff. It's on one of my albums, by the way. And there you go. I spoke about albums again. I don't even have them for sale anymore. But I think you can go on YouTube and see some of the songs and some of the places where I've been and where I've shared my songs. There's many churches around the country. God bless you, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Now listen, God's real. God can do it for you. Just take a scripture like that, Lord, you delight me, delight yourself in the Lord, and stand on it and practice it. You can prove the Bible is true by just practicing any one of the principles and watch God work it out for you. Because he's there and he's real. And that sometimes, even at times like he did for me, I think that's probably maybe 2 times in my life I felt like he had talked audibly to me, and that was one of them. So I hope that you enjoyed this testimony. I know it's true. God was there, I was there, and my friend was there, and he saw it happen. So God bless you, and listen, I got some more exciting stories. I got some great ones to tell. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to tell one that coming up. This next one, that'd be episode 4, I believe, and it's about the time when God, what's that word? Transported me and a friend from one place to another within a split second time, when I would have been dead if he hadn't have done it. You gotta listen, you gotta tune in for the 4th episode and listen to that one. God bless you. Bye-bye.